Welcome to Coffee Talk with Kurt Thompson. One thing I've observed in real life and online when it comes to working on scales is that there are a couple of techniques that aren't out there. I mean, I've looked at violin teachers on YouTube, sax teachers, flute teachers, piano teachers, of course trumpet and brass, and I haven't seen these specific strategies for improving your scales. So today I'm going to be giving you 3 strategies and maybe a bonus one as well that you might already know about to really speed up and make your scales faster and more efficient and well learned. We all know about taking your scales slow and working up to fast, because we know if you just start a scale and try to go as fast as you can over and over, that you're likely not going to do that well, because you're going to end up making mistakes and missing notes, and that's going to get logged into your brain. So there's actually a couple of techniques, but I'm going to be posting this in groups, not just for trumpet and brass, but also flute players, bassoon or oboe, maybe even strings, because this is kind of a universal strategy that will actually work for your scales regardless of what instrument that you play. And then think of this more like the inner game of scales. Think of this as the inner game of scales. You've heard that book, The Inner Game of Golf or Basketball. So this is going to be more of a psychological or mindset that's going to help you. Inner game of scales. And so this is also cool because, especially for wind musicians, where their face gets tired, they get tired because of the breath, you can actually utilize these psychological scale techniques when you're taking a rest. You're doing an etude, and your fingers are cramping up. You know you need to take a rest. So on these rests, you can multitask these strategies for improving your scales. And so let me give you the example of the first one. Now this is obvious to me, but I'm just astounded how all over, and I have checked all over, nobody seems to be teaching this. And I've taught it for many, many years with great success, especially for students auditioning for mid-state band, all-state band, honor band, solo and ensemble. Here in Texas, they call it UIL. So these students have nailed their scales quicker. And also, even if you get nervous, you tend to be a little bit more an automatic pilot. So it actually helps out with stage fright if you're auditioning. So number 1, the first gambit strategy or technique for improving your scales, and remember, this is the inner game of scales, we're using our mind, is to say the name of the notes in the scale up and down. Simple, right? But why haven't you been doing it? How come nobody's talking about it? Maybe they don't know. Let's just take plain vanilla C major. And it's just a C major for your instrument. Maybe you did this back in 5th or 6th grade when you were first learning, that's what a C looks like. But since then, maybe you haven't thought about the actual names of the notes. Technique number 1 is to say the names of the notes in the scale up and down without hesitation. And you could start, slow obviously. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, B, A, G, F, E, D, C, like that. And if you're a younger player watching this video, of course you're going to go a lot slower than that. Now you don't want to be looking at the notes on a page. That would be number 1, because then you're kind of cheating, right? You can do that to begin with, but after that, then you would utilize this technique. So this is not looking at any page or anything visual. It's coming from your mind, the inner game of scales. So once again, whatever scale it could be. If you went to F sharp major for everybody has how many sharps? 4 sharps? No! 6 sharps. So you would do the same thing for a typical hard key. There's, I guess, a ideology out there that there are no hard keys. But the fact of the matter is, on certain instruments, some scales lend themselves easier, and some scales lend themselves more difficult, just because of the finger combinations or the bowing you know, the break that you might have to go over, whatever. So yeah, in theory, all scales are equal and there are no hard scales, but in reality, there are some hard scales. So for trumpet, anytime you start to throw with the third finger, in those combinations, the scales do get harder, simply because the third finger is not as strong as the first two fingers, and also the first two fingers are more independent. The third finger tends to be tied to the second finger here. This is just for trumpet folks, and you can see this example. I can wiggle my fingers. What happens if I tie this down? And now watch me wiggle. Look at the third finger is just not able to really move. So this is an example where when you're utilizing the third finger of the trumpet in music, it's going to be more of a challenge, just because of our anatomy. You can overcome that challenge, but it still doesn't mean it's as easy as a scale where you involve mainly the first two fingers, like for us, F major, concert E flat. We don't have to worry about the third finger. As a result, trumpet players tend to like F major quite a lot. So if we went to F sharp, which for trumpet folks does have a lot of third finger action in there, at least the first part of the scale, and it does have 6 sharps, so you'd have to mentally think F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B, C sharp, D sharp, E sharp, F sharp, E sharp, D sharp, C sharp, B, A sharp, G sharp, F sharp. Did I get it? Yeah. So that has to be in your noggin, it has to be mental. So that is one example. Now you also want to try to speed this up if you can. So whatever scale you're working on, you start slow. We'll go back to plain vanilla C. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and so forth, and then come back down. Now remember, I kind of broke it up here because for the sake of time in this video, I know it's going to be a long video regardless, but I'm trying to chop off some of the time. But you don't want to break it up. A lot of people do have trouble, especially intermediate players have trouble when they have to come back down the scale. And they'll chip a note, they'll flub, you'll hear a little pause or something, and we don't want that. We want you to come right up and right back down. So technique number 1 is the inner game of scales, is to mentally be able to say the notes up and down fast. Just say the names of the notes of the scale, and regardless if you're playing violin, piano, voice, bassoon, sax, it doesn't really matter. So that's why I'm going to put this out to all groups that I'm involved in on Facebook, because it's practical knowledge for you, and I don't see it anywhere. I mean, it's just like this is like some secret techniques here that I know about and nobody else knows about for really enhancing and learning your scales better. Okay, so now I'm going to get more instrument specific. And this is a cool technique too. Again, it doesn't involve playing, so you can utilize this during a rest or a break. You're multitasking here. You're resting your fingers, or you're resting your breath in your mouth or whatever, but you're still getting something done. The next technique or strategy for the inner game of scales is to finger your scales on your instrument. Now, obviously, if you play piano, well, then you're really doing the scale. So for piano players, this might not necessarily count. But for everybody else, I'm thinking of violin players here. Actually, violin, yeah, violin players could do it. If you just want to remove the right hand and just, try to finger through some of the, yeah, you could do it with violin. What we're going to do here, again, without playing, we're just going to finger the scale. Let's go to C major for trumpet players. And so here I go. That was the fingering for C major. Just by doing that, by taking out the playing of it, where your ears kind of are a crutch and they kind of help you along with the scale, now there's no sound. You're just purely working on the finger technique. Here it is again. I'll go slower for the intermediates. I'm starting now. Okay? Regardless if you play trumpet, you could be on sax and do the same thing, just don't play, but you're going to work through your fingers. Make sure to pound the keys down hard. Grip them hard, whatever instrument that you play on. Flute, same thing. You really want to bang the right notes into your brain, and you have to really press and strike the keys hard. Clarinet as well. That's technique number 2, and it really works because you can be resting if you're resting from working on an etude or something else, and you're tired, you can be working this technique instead of wasting time, instead of checking your phone, right? For, you know, who left you a message on Facebook. Again, here it is for trumpet, but this could be on everybody's instrument. I'm banging them down pretty hard. Now a little faster. Now a lot of advanced players will find C major pretty easy, but if, of course, you're not going to be working on just the easy ones. Let's take like F sharp again. Watch again. Can you do that? Can you do it faster? There we go. See? I'm not really thinking about it too much because I've worked these own strategies myself for years. Although I'm satisfied with my playing most of the time, there's always room for improvement no matter what level you are, even if you're professional. And so we can keep being a student of this instrument or your instrument. You can be a student of your instrument all your life, even if you're rated the #1 violin player in the world. There's probably still something that you can work on and improve, right? That's kind of the nature of this tutorial. So far we've gone over in the inner game of scales, mentally saying the names of the scales when you go up and down on your instrument. The second thing is to finger the scales in your instrument, right? What would be the third thing? The third thing would be to say the keys if you can, or the violin position if you can, or the slide position if you're on trombone. And for trumpet, it would be the valve combination. So for French horn and tuba, baritone, euphonium, and trumpet would be your valve combinations or rotor combinations, trombone, slide, obviously. And for now, instruments that have more keys, this will be a little bit more of a ordeal for you because you're not going to be able to spit them out as fast, but still you want to do the best that you can. For trumpet, for example, you've already seen me do the C major scale. This is open position, 1, 2, 3, or 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 1 and 3, 2, 1, 3. Of course, this is an alternate. So now watch how I do this. So if I'm going to say the valve combinations, it would be like this. Open, 1 and 3, 1 and 2, 1, open, 1 and 2, 2, open, 2, 1 and 2, open, 1, 1 and 2, 1 and 3, open. Slower, open, 1 and 3, 1 and 2, 1, open, 1 and 2, 2, open, 2, 1 and 2, open, 1, 1 and 2, 1 and 3, open. So now your brain is getting exactly what you have to do when you play it. That's actually what's going through the physical kinetic process there when you're doing everything. It's the realism. But when you take all that away, your brain is still able to grasp onto these fingerings. And by doing that, you're kind of segregating that in your brain and you're making that even more crystal clear. So when you go back to your instrument, you're going to be that much better. So again, let's do it slow. This is just for my instrument. You'll have to transpose it to whatever instrument that you play. So just the fingerings for this instrument would be open, 1 and 3, 1 and 2, 1, open, 1 and 2, 2, open, 2, 1 and 2, open, 1, 1 and 2, 1 and 3, open. I didn't go slow, did I? Let me try one more time slow. Open, 1 and 3, 1 and 2, 1, open, 1 and 2, 2, open, 2, 1 and 2, open, 1, 1 and 2, 1 and 3, open. Another way to do it would be not to have your instrument nearby. Let me set the instrument down. And don't unconsciously finger through. Now, totally mental, and you have to just do it almost in your head without even pretending you're playing your instrument. So again, what you just saw here, but without me kind of role modeling on my fingers, open, 1 and 3, 1 and 2, 1, open, 1, 2, 2, open, 2, 1, 2, open, 1, 1 and 2, 1 and 3, open. So there, I'm not even helping myself out by fingering along. All right, so those are the 3 main techniques that I have not seen anybody else working with their students, unless they're secretly doing it. But in this day and age of a lot of these things being transparent, somebody else would have popped up on YouTube or somewhere talking about this specific strategy for scales. and they haven't. So that leads me to believe that possibly a lot of professionals and teachers have not thought about this for helping out their students, and maybe they haven't even considered it an option for helping themselves when it comes to scales. So I believe this will be quite an interesting tutorial for most musicians that would like to get better at their scales. Now the bonus technique I talked about, now this is one that is known by I think about almost all musicians and teachers that are at least at the advanced level or pro, and that's simply memorizing the scale. So a lot of younger students, beginners and intermediates, of course, they're always looking in their book and they're going to the back of the book where the chromatic scale is and they're looking for the fingerings. Or I've even had some 8th graders and 9th graders that couldn't get out of the habit of writing in their fingerings, or the names of the notes in their actual music for concerts and stuff. And those kids just drove me crazy. They said, don't write the fingerings. You're enabling yourself to be a poor musician as a result of doing that. So going back to memorization, this is a bonus, and the reason I consider it a bonus is because I figure most of you know about that. But if you're a 9th or 10th grader wanting to get better, wanting to move up in your chair test, and wanting to do better at UIL, honors, solo and ensemble auditions, drum corps, DCI auditions, college scholarship try auditions, all-state band auditions, you're going to have your scales memorized, because what happens when you memorize something, anything, you overlearn something, right? If you have something memorized, you've overlearned it. You can learn something without memorizing, right? We can learn a lot of things without memorizing it, but when you do memorize something, you have overlearned it. And we really want to excel in music to the point where it's difficult for us to make a mistake. I believe in practicing to the point of mastery where when you go to play it, you'd have to purposely try to mess it up. That's where I believe mastery is, when you play it without thinking and it just comes out almost perfectly or perfectly, and you actually have to purposely try to screw it up. So that's mastery. That's the point that we all want to get to on everything. So memorization is a key component of that. If you have something memorized, you're likely going to be able to play it better, especially play it better under pressure. So that was the bonus technique. And again, probably most of you knew about that, but just in case you didn't, you need to include that in your strategy for getting better with scales. So I hope you enjoyed that. Let's do a recap of what we started off with. Remember, you're going to say the names of the notes in the particular scale that you're working on. Start off slow and just say the names. Again, you don't need to have, it might even be best not to have your instrument in hand, so you totally have to mentally do it. You could even try doing it with your eyes closed. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, B, A, G, F, E, D, C. Boom. That even seems a little bit different with the eyes closed. And then you're going to try to get that faster and faster, right? Faster and faster means you have it down pat and more automatic. All right, the two other strategies that we talked about today in this inner game of scales and scale mastery would be to finger through the scales, of course, without playing them. And you can do that. Maybe you can make it more difficult, like on a violin. You're not going to be adding sound to it with the bow, so you just use your fingers. The other instruments, obviously, like bassoon, you're just not going to be blowing into it. Flute, you're not going to be blowing into it. So, fingering through the scale and really pounding the pads down, the levers down, the valves down. Oh, trombone players, how would you do that? Well, you're still going to do the same thing. First, 6, 4, 3, 1, like that. So you're going to be doing the slide positions and be very aggressive with getting out there fast. And then the last thing is saying the fingerings and the combinations. Well, I just did it for trombone, right? So first, 6, 4th, 3rd, 1st, 4th, 2, 1, like that. So in your positions, that would be the B flat scale. And then I already demonstrated that for trumpet. Everybody else can do it. It might be more complex the more keys that you have on your instrument, but you can still try to work that out, or you can mentally work that out. So there you have it, 3 awesome techniques that will definitely help you improve your scales for anything that you want to do, at the very least, just to become a better musician. Please like this, share it, make a comment. I really think that if you try it with your students, if you're a teacher, you're going to find they get the scale down quicker and they do much better when it comes to auditions, chair tests, and things like all-state band tryouts. I'm Kurt Thompson. Again, I hope you found some value in this, and I'll see you in the next one. My website, by the way, is TRUMPETSIZZLE.com. Bye-bye.